On May 30th of 2001, at a fourplex located at 1137 Dalzell Street in Shreveport, Louisiana, the defendant John Reagan Devine shot and killed Joshua Koob during an altercation which initially involved Koob and defendant's brother, Nicholas Devine. At the time of the shooting, Koob, the defendant, and Nicholas occupied 3 of the apartments in the fourplex, with the 4th apartment being occupied by James O'Connor and Carlos Vasquez. Nick Devine came home from work around 5 p.m. on May 30th of 2001 to find that his apartment had been burglarized. The burglar had broken the lock to the front door to gain entry. Nick picked up a shotgun and rifle from his father, intending to spend the night in his apartment with his brother to prevent any further vandalism or theft. Noting erratic behavior on the part of Joshua Koob earlier that day, the brothers suspected that it was Koob who had broken into Nick's apartment. At approximately 10:30 p.m., Nick, who was returning to his apartment with his father's gun, encountered Koob, who was descending the inner stairs, and asked Koob where was his fiancée's engagement ring. Koob saw Nick's weapon and pulled a pistol out of his own pants, saying, "It's going to be like that?" The argument increased in intensity, and the defendant intervened. Koob was shot once in the back by the defendant with a shotgun. Koob fell to the floor and rolled onto his back. After this point, defendant grabbed the 9mm pistol from Koob and shot Koob 3 times with a pistol in the neck, face, and chest. The Shreveport police officers responded to the scene, and the defendant and Nick, together with other witnesses to the shooting, were separated and taken in for questioning. At the time of the shooting, Jade Coffer was in the defendant's apartment, and O'Connor and Vasquez were in their apartment, and Matt Nance and Jason Tyler were moving Tyler's belongings from Koob's second-floor apartment to Tyler's vehicle, which was parked in the lot behind the fourplex. The defendant was arrested and charged with second-degree murder. A jury of 12 found the defendant guilty of the responsive verdict of manslaughter, and the defendant was sentenced to 30 years at hard labor. He did appeal his conviction, with no luck. According to Devine, Joshua Koob was the aggressor, and the defendant was in reasonable apprehension that Koob was still armed when the defendant fired his weapon. Therefore, defendant's actions were reasonable considering the totality of the circumstances. At the trial, several witnesses testified that they had seen the victim, Joshua Koob, with a gun prior to the shooting. James O'Connor, another resident of the fourplex, stated that he had seen Koob outside earlier that day with a gun stuck down inside his shorts. Other witnesses, including the defendant's brother, Matt Nance, and Jason Tyler, testified that when Nick Devine confronted Koob about stealing his girlfriend's ring, Koob pulled a pistol from his pants. Both defendant and his brother testified that at the time that the defendant first shot Koob, he still had a gun in his hand and he was moving away from the defendant toward Nick. However, several other witnesses, including Matt Nance, Jade Coffer, James O'Connor, and Carlos Vasquez, testified that Koob was not armed when he was first shot by the defendant. The testimony of the forensic pathologist, Dr. George McCormick, clearly demonstrated that Koob was first shot in the back with a shotgun slug, and then while lying face up on the floor, he was shot 3 times with a handgun. The pistol used by the defendant was the one the defendant had taken from Koob. According to Dr. McCormick, 3 of the 4 shots would have been fatal. Dr. McCormick on cross stated that although the shotgun wound would have immediately dropped the victim to the floor and eventually have been fatal, the victim could have moved his hands while laying on the ground. The defendant claims that he believed that Koob may have still had a weapon. However, the only handgun recovered at the scene was the 9mm used by the defendant. The appeals court concluded that any aggression on the part of Koob had ended, and that he was the first shot in the back by the defendant and then shot in the neck, face, and chest while lying on the floor. The elements of second-degree murder were proved beyond a reasonable doubt, and a lesser verdict of manslaughter was responsive to the crime charged. Devine was 22 years old at the time of the offense, and he had a significant prior criminal history. His arrest history included illegal possession of stolen things, simple burglary, and possession of drug paraphernalia. However, he pled guilty to misdemeanor illegal possession of stolen things. While on probation for that offense, the defendant was arrested for armed robbery, but allowed to plead guilty to felony theft. The defendant also pled guilty to possession of a firearm by a convicted felon, aggravated assault, illegal use of a weapon, possession of an altered firearm, misdemeanor theft, simple battery, theft of goods, and drinking in public. He had an arrest for the possession of marijuana and simple battery. However, these charges were dismissed. The court did take into consideration that the victim was 21 years old at the time that he was killed, and his autopsy showed evidence of a recent drug use. The court considered letters written by the victim's mother and stepfather. The court also considered a letter written by the defendant in addition to the defendant's trial testimony and letters sent on his behalf. The court felt that the defendant was in need of correctional treatment and that any lesser sentence would deprecate the seriousness of the crime. The court also opined that the defendant's conduct manifested deliberate cruelty to the victim. The court noted that the defendant's conduct had a tremendous impact on the victim's family, emotionally and financially. Additionally, the court pointed out that the defendant used dangerous weapons in the commission of the offense. Finally, the court took cognizance of the defendant's lack of remorse for his actions. April 2024, the defendant is up for parole. He has been in prison since December 14th of 2005. Let's watch his hearing.
Committee on Parole is called back to order. The time is 10:50. Panel members today are Ms. Pearl Wise, Mr. Pete Freeman. My name is Tony Marabella, and I'll be acting as chair. Our remote location this morning is at the David Wade Correctional Center. Would the staff at David Wade please introduce themselves?
Assistant Warden Brenda Ackland, Anna Ralston, Kristen Harper, classification.
Danny Henshaw, classification.
Crystal Whitmore, classification.
Colonel Malcolm.
Thank you. Our first case is going to be Mr. John Devine. Mr. Devine, would you give us your full name and DOC number, please?
My name is John Reagan Devine. My number is 390-375.
Mr. Devine, let me explain our process to you. First, I'm going to read some information into the record, and then the board is going to conduct a parole interview with you. At the appropriate time, we will allow those persons who've indicated they wish to speak. Here today on your behalf is your aunt, Shilda Devine, and your mother, Rebecca Devine. Also here in opposition is Ms. Thelma Walton and Mr. Seth Walton. At the end of the hearing, after we've had an opportunity to discuss this matter with everyone, you'll have an opportunity to say whatever you'd like to say to the board before we vote. You understand our procedure, sir?
Yes, sir.
This is the matter of John R. Devine, DOC number 390-375, date of birth April the 25th of 1979. Mr. Devine is classified as a second felony offender. He has a parole eligibility date of April the 25th of 2024. He is not eligible for good time, and he has a full term date of January the 6th of 2034. He is currently serving a 30-year sentence on the charge of manslaughter after having been adjudicated a habitual offender. Mr. Devine, is that information accurate?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Devine, your case has been assigned to Ms. Pearl Wise. She will begin our interview process. Would you please answer any questions she might have?
Yes, sir.
Good morning.
Good morning.
It is still morning, right?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Mr. Devine, tell us in your own words, why are you in jail?
I'm incarcerated for taking my friend's life, Josh Koob.
He was your friend?
Yes, ma'am.
How long had you guys been friends?
Since I was 15 years old.
Okay. Do you remember what happened? What was going on? Take us back there.
Yes, ma'am. That day, he had been going through some things, and he was my upstairs neighbor. I left. When I came home, my brother's apartment, she lived right across, was broken into. Later on that night, we had a confrontation. He pulled a gun on my brother. I intervened. I shot him. When he dropped his gun, I picked it up and continued to fire.
Were you living in that apartment with your brother?
Yes, ma'am. It was a fourplex. I lived on the bottom. Josh lived above me, and my brother lived across from Josh.
Oh, okay, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So you and your brother each have your own apartment?
Yes, ma'am, we all have
Your
our own
brother's
apartment.
apartment they had got broken into?
Yes, ma'am, but it was in the same complex, yes.
Right, right. And so, he was y'all's understanding that y'all believe that he had broken into the apartment?
Yes, ma'am. I
Did y'all
didn't know
have-
with certainty, but we definitely suspected.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah. Okay, it was just so unfortunate and we do have a, statement from your brother, on his, his side. He did send a letter. I'm sure you're aware of that. Your brother sent a letter.
Yes,
An
ma'am.
opportunity to read. And your brother was not charged at all, because you don't have a co-defendant in this matter, right?
No, ma'am, he was not charged.
Okay. And you are listed as a second offender. What was your first felony?
It was felony theft.
Oh, what was that about? That,
I was young and wild, and I took the bank bag from a Sam Goody store, and I was initially charged with armed robbery, but it was never a robbery. The person I robbed knew I was robbing him, so I eventually pled guilty to felony theft.
yeah, that supervision was terminated satisfactorily,
Yes, ma'am.
1999. But you did have some other assault charges, and assault matters, battery matters, and drinking in the public, and possession of alcohol, possession of marijuana.
Yes, ma'am.
So tell us about your drug and alcohol history. What age did you start using?
I started around 15,
And using what?
smoking marijuana, and then I ended up taking pills and drinking, and I was between moderate to pretty regular use,
Of what?
mainly marijuana, and also alcohol.
Have you had any treatment for that?
Yes, ma'am. I went to a rehab on the street, and I've participated in 12 steps AA. I'm currently in Living in Balance and Celebrating Recovery.
Okay, enrolling those now, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And I see that you got your certificate of barbering, and you've been cutting hair since you were like 15.
Yes, ma'am.
But you've done that. And you also got another trade, huh? What was the other trade?
Vocational degree in carpentry,
Okay.
but my passion has definitely been cutting hair.
Okay. And what do you do every day besides the barbering in the prison? Is that it?
I have a really two jobs. I'm an orderly. I clean, I pass out laundry, and also am a barber.
Okay, and you also cut hair, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I do have in my notes that I thought you completed, but I saw it one while when you're on supervision. You got revoked for I say you had poor supervision overall. Were you on supervision when you committed this offense?
No, ma'am.
What? Okay. How long had you been off supervision? You remember?
I cannot remember, be honest with you.
Okay. Looked like it was we had a 6-month DA probation in 2001, in April 18th of 2001. Well, in 17 and 2002. How would you say you did under supervision?
I had my problems, but I was just I was a kid, you know. I was trying to navigate the system, you know, try to figure my own self out, I guess.
It was something about following rules, huh? You kind of had a problem with following rules, would you say?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
That's what you meant when you said you were a kid?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. We've all been kids at one time in our lives. Tell Tell me about your education besides your trades. Do you have a GED?
I do have a GED.
When did you get that?
1998,
Were you
I
in
think.
prison or on the street?
I was on the street.
Good, good. So you were 25 when you got this sentence, right?
I was 24, right
You were
before my
20
25th
you were
birthday.
24, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And I'll call out for the record how long you served on this 30-year sentence.
Almost 20 years in January.
Okay, and how old are you today?
I'm 44 years of age.
44 today. Let's talk about your write-ups. In these almost 20 years, how many write-ups have you had?
I had 4 write-ups within a 2-year period between 2018 and 2020.
Yeah, so that's what I'm showing. And your last one was May 5th of 2020. That was a fight.
Yes, ma'am.
Tell us about that.
I regret to say that I wish I could go back, and there's no justification for it, but I got caught up in prison life and I felt like a guy was bullying me. So I felt like I did what I had to do. I wish I could have handled it differently.
Okay. But it looked like it did end, huh?
Yes, ma'am.
And I see you've had quite a bit of loss in the last year now. My sympathies to you, the loss of your father and your grandfather the last few years. I'm just glad to see that it's not reflected in your write-ups. So you managed to handle the grief in a way that didn't result in write-ups. I want to commend you for that. But oftentimes that's not the case. And if you're successful today, you plan on Rouge and getting totally away from Shreveport. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
You want to tell us about your plans?
I would like to go to Baton Rouge to the Joseph House. I would also like to attend a college, but I don't know where, but I just know that it takes 1,500 hours to get certified in barber school. And that's a passion I would like to continue to pursue. I like making other people happy. I feel like because of my work ethic, I think I'll do well with getting a job and going to school at the same time.
Good. I saw that you've taken victim awareness.
Yes.
Tell us at least 3 things that you learned in victim awareness that you didn't already know.
Well, one thing is about the ripple effect and how actions cause reactions. I think the biggest takeaway from that course was empathy and learning to put yourself in other people's shoes, and I guess consideration for other people. You know, life is not all about myself. You know?
Okay. If my memory serves me correct, I saw where when your brother's apartment got broken into, y'all went to a relative's house and got guns.
Yes, ma'am.
So what was that thinking? What was that? Help me understand that.
We lived in a bad neighborhood, and his door was completely open. It had been kicked in, and the rationale at the time was to prevent further entry. That it was to.
So are you saying that you were prepared to do what you ended up doing? You were prepared to do it. You were getting ready for that if someone else came in.
Yes, ma'am.
But unfortunately, he didn't come to the door though. This was all in the.
Yes, ma'am.
What do you remember? What words were exchanged? Do you remember?
I was in my apartment at the time. Him and my brother had a confrontation.
So you don't even know what words were
I didn't even, when I walked outside, they were both pulling guns on each other. And I intervened, and my brother went up underneath the staircase. Me and Josh tussled, and he followed my brother, and I picked up the gun that my brother had dropped. And when I came around the corner and seen him with his had with him with the gun on my brother, that's when I shot him.
I do want to inform you, as a part of this process, we do reach out to the law enforcement community to get their opinion about early release. And there's opposition, the DA, the sheriff, the judge, all of them are opposed to your early release. And I see that you are the father of one child. Tell us about your child.
I have 2 children.
You have 2? Okay, the right records I have show 1. Tell us about the ages of your children.
I have a daughter who's 21, who lives in Olympia, Washington, and I have a son who's 19. He lives in Bossier City, and we are very close,
Good, good. How do y'all maintain contact?
just through telephone and email.
Good. It's good to hear.
My son occasionally visits, but my daughter, because of the distance and miles. But as far as relationship wise, I'm blessed that we're close, and I'm also blessed that they turned out pretty good without a father.
I saw that you took partners in parenting,
Twice. Yes, ma'am.
Good for you. I know that's challenging.
I
Okay, that's
wanna-
all I had. I'll just sit back and listen and.
Mr. Freeman.
Mr. Devon, I saw you had 3 contrabands in a row, and I know you had a lot going on then. What were the contraband?
The first one was 2 plastic vials. I had an indoor hobbycraft. I couldn't explain where I got them, so it was a misunderstanding, I think. But after I caught the first write-up, because of my state of mind and I was depressed, I think it became easier and easier for me to just become acclimated to prison life. And I know there's no justification for that, but that is my rationale,
Yeah. So what, was there any drugs involved?
Yes, my 3rd contraband, I failed a drug test for amphetamine. I was working out, trying to feel better, and a guy offered me a pill, and I took it, and I failed a drug test.
And have you ever received any drug treatment? Have you gone to AA, anything like that?
Yes. I'm involved in AA, and I'm in a 12-step program. I'm also in Living in Balance and Celebrating Recovery.
You're in that now, or you've taken?
Yes. I've been attending AA, but I'm currently involved in all those.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Now we'll hear from your supporters, your aunt, Miss Shilda Devine. Ms. Devine, if you would please introduce yourself and tell us what you'd like us to know.
Hi, my name is Shilda Devine. My deceased brother was John's dad, and I'm asking that you grant John parole. I believe he's taken responsibility for his actions, and I also think that he has a plan for reentry that will help him become a positive, contributing member of society. Our family has been supportive of his time of incarceration, and there is no reason to believe that we will change that. We want to continue to provide him with emotional and social support as he transitions to life outside prison. I believe because of what he's experienced during his incarceration and because of his plan for a livelihood and with the support that we would provide, I think that this would help establish a positive framework for his transition to life outside prison. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ms. Devine. We appreciate your comments. Ms. Rebecca Devine.
Yes, sir.
Good morning, Ms. Devine. If you would introduce yourself and tell us what you'd like us to know about your son.
My name is Rebecca Devine, and I am his mom. I would just like to reiterate what his aunt just said. We love John very much. And we know that John loved Josh. After watching him grow, John has grown behind bars to be a 44-year-old man, and I can see an amazing, wonderful person that God meant for him to be. He's always soaking up knowledge offered. He has the funniest sense of humor. Most importantly, he always has a positive outlook on life and uses that positivity to lift everyone up. We love John very, very much. And whatever the decision is today, I will always be looking for John to prove he is capable of making a positive difference in our world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Devine. Now we'll hear from the victim's family, Ms. Thelma Walton. Ms. Walton, we have your letter and we have all read it, so it's no need to reread it. But if you'd like to say anything in addition to that, we'll be glad to listen to you.
So he can't hear what we have to say in the letter. Like for him to at least remember, stuff.
You could reiterate some issues in the letter. I mean, we've read the entire letter, but you can say whatever you believe to be important in the highlights that you'd like him to know.
It's just the whole, just like I said last time I was here, it was for a hard opinion. Nothing really changed from that. I'm sorry for everybody involved. I'm sorry for his mother, I'm sorry for his aunt, I'm sorry for his son. The problem I keep having with this is that his version of the story is not eyewitnesses or the law enforcement. And I had to go by that. Based on that, the brutality of what he did, shooting the son, saying things that we did. I don't feel that. I'm sorry for his life too. I'm gonna say that right now. He was good for him. I never really got to be able to see him for whatever reason, but I know he was good friends with my son. But that day, I don't know, but the thing for us is a permanent. We have a life sentence for what he did. Like he told y'all, he still gets to talk to his son. He still gets to have business with his son. Our son has a son that we had to raise that you get on the letter. He's never got to even see his dad. And that's a permanent thing. Same thing now, he has a granddaughter he's never going to get to see. That's not the same. I mean, I know being in prison is no joke, but at least he does get to see, still have contact with his family and his son, his daughter, which our son doesn't get to have that. That's what he did. Like I said last time, I'm not supposed to talk to him. There's consequences for actions we take. And as hard as it is the consequences. But I believe our consequences are much worse. We've had to live all these years without him. It still hurts a lot. Example, I just bring it back. I get this happened yesterday. We had to drive away from San Antonio here. I just found I had cancer just a few months ago. I just got through with chemo. No, I'm not supposed to go anywhere. But my wife was so adamant about going to my person. And I just do the Zoom because we want y'all to see and this stuff. We felt like we made the effort to come over here, but we wanted everybody to know how much this still affects our life. And that's all we're going to say.
Ms. Walton, if you wish to read that letter, you can read it.
Well, I'll just like him. If it's okay.
Sure.
Can you?
Yes, ma'am. He'll be able to hear you.
Okay. On May 30th, 2001, our son Josh was brutally murdered by John Devine. As much as it pains us, John Devine will always be a part of Josh's life story. Although John decided to act with God one day to take our child's life, he has not ended Josh's story. At the time of death, Josh was a loving son, brother, soon to be father. Today, he would be known as a strong father, loving uncle, and grandfather. All these titles he was never able to take ownership of because of John Devine's actions. This tragedy has hit our family almost 20 years ago, has left our family in fragments, and has affected generations. As his parents, we have struggled endlessly with our son's death. No parent should have to experience their child pass away, especially as sudden as we did. In our grief, we have taken on responsibility of caring for Josh's son, who has lost his father before he was born. He should have been able to enjoy watching Josh learn to be a father and be a proud grandparent. We continue to mourn Josh's death, but we also mourn for the life that could have been. And because of his death, our family has faced hardship that only John Devine can be responsible for. Our grandchild has been severely impacted by the loss of his father. As his grandparents, we have been his primary caretaker throughout his life. Our grandson has missed out on important experiences that he could only ever have with his father. Although we had done our best, there is no replacing a relationship between the father and the son. In his grief, poor man, he was never given the opportunity to meet. His son has struggled to find his identity. He has known all his life that his father was murdered, and this has always negatively affected him. At a young age, he had a difficult time understanding why he didn't have a father while all of the other kids at school felt the excitement. He was never able to get dropped off at school by his dad or feel the excitement of giving his dad a Father's Day card. All things that a normal child would be able to cherish were taken by John Devine. While little Josh has struggled emotionally to find his identity and his purpose in life, he has joined the military and is serving his country. Otherwise, he would be here. As we attend his military graduation, surrounded by proud fathers, it was clear that he struggled with his father not being able to be there. And again, we blame John Devine for that. Because of John Devine's actions, our grandchild is scarred and other children traumatized, and our family is struggling still. John Devine is a murderer, but continues to enjoy the pleasures of waking up every day, looking forward to a visit or a letter from his family. Even behind bars, he still has something to look forward to day after day. He can talk to his family, have visits with his child, hear the stories of life, and gets to be a part of his child's life. Our Josh can't do any of those things for his son. Why does John Devine deserve to have the pleasures that our son never got a chance to have? As hateful as the man is, John Devine is allowed to walk the earth. His family doesn't have a heavy heart on holidays, Josh's birthday or anniversary of Josh's death. That is the struggle that we have to bear, all because of John Devine. Although he says he has changed, he is not a change reform man. He brutally murdered our son. He was a bold-faced murderer who took pride in killing our son. He was a horrible person leading up to my son's murder, with several crimes committed and no punishment received. Dr. Bond shot our son in the back, and then he stood over him and shot him 2 more times in the neck and in the face. We continue to come to these hearings because we never want any family or individual to feel as we have the last 20 years. Josh cared for each member of our family and was a binding force that kept us all together. Since his death, our family has never been the same. Josh's presence in our life had an amazing light, and without him, generations of our family have been severely affected. Because of John Devine's actions, our family will never heal. We want to ensure that he is in prison. Anything less would diminish the pain we and our family members have faced in the wake of losing Josh. We ask you to keep John Devine in prison and deny him any and all chances that would allow him to be released early. He was only given 30 years, where we were given a life sentence. We are aware that the appeals court has already denied him early release, and we pray you would do the same. I stand here before you today, traveling several hours to get here, as my husband's battling cancer, to the voice for my son. He's here, and my grandson, and the rest of my family to please do the right thing and keep John Devine where he deserves to be. Thank you for.
Thank you.
I forgot to ask the warden for comments.
Warden, can you tell us anything about Mr. Devine?
Yes, sir. Mr. Devine has been here at Wade since August of '05. He did have those couple of write-ups during that two-year period, but he has seemed to rebound from that. He is currently, as he stated, participating in parenting and other programs, completed reentry. He is a according to, Gordon Kimball, he is a excellent barber and follows directions well. He's not a problem here at Wade. And, I'm open for any questions you might have for anything else.
All right, thank you, Ward, and I apologize for not asking you earlier.
That's okay.
All right.
Okay. Mr. Devine, is there anything you'd like to say to the board before the board votes?
Yes, I have a brief prepared statement that I would like to share with you and Ms. Walton. Is that all right if I read it?
Certainly.
I would like to start with the fact that there is nothing that I can do to change what I've done. There is no amount of time that will pass that will erase what happened 22 years ago. There's no time machine to change any of the circumstances that led up to this tragic event. The only thing I've been able to do is change myself. When you reach your mid-40s, you start to realize you have more yesterdays than tomorrows, and the urgency to make the days count, to establish a legacy, become more paramount. When my life is over, I want this to be a dark chapter, not a defining characteristic of who I am. I want to have a positive impact on people. I strive for construction, not destruction, progress, not regress. I want to help people. I never want to harm another soul as long as I live. It's been 22 years since I took Josh Koob's life. I was 22 years old at the time. It's paradoxical to me that all the things that led me to that moment brought me to prison, which initiated change in me that has led to me where I am right now. It hasn't been without challenges, but those challenges were also what made me who I am today. May 30th, 2001 was the worst day of my life. When I think of that day, I feel terrible. The only comfort I have is that I'm not that person anymore. If I could say anything to Josh's family, I would tell them I'm deeply remorseful for the pain I've caused them. Josh was my friend, and my actions have affected so many lives. There's nothing I can say to justify that. I don't know what the parole board will decide today on whether to grant me parole or not, but I'm resolved in my decision to be a better person. I cannot let the person I was stop me from being the person I was meant to be. Josh's family, I pray for healing and forgiveness. Thank you for your time and consideration. I would also like to add that I live with pain too, and I appreciate Ms. Walton's statement, and that's it.
Thank you. Panel, ready to vote?
Yes. To the family of the victim's family this morning, thank y'all so much for coming. I see you and I hear you. John, to your family, there's no winners here, and we know that. Several things stand out to me in this case, and one of them is that your parole eligibility date is April the 24th of 2024. Regardless of what happens today, you'll be leaving on that day. Based on your sentence structure and what's been decided. I am concerned about you leaving having completed some kind of long-term substance abuse treatment program. And for me, that's my concern. And my decision is based on how I think you need that, because you're going out in the public anyway. So my vote is to grant, after you complete a long-term substance abuse treatment program, which is about 9 months, would take you to your parole eligibility date anyway. I want you to sit on the front row and really pay attention. I'm just one vote. This due to you do have a low tiger, you do have positive comments from the warden, and your overall positive institutional adjustment. And I do want your residence plan to be in Baton Rouge. I agree with your rationale on that, to move to Baton Rouge and complete whatever St. Joseph's home, prescribed for you. And undergo, follow the treatment program set by them, how many AANA meetings you need to take, you need to finish it. And before you go to a substance abuse program, I want you to finish the Living in Balance, the programs that you enrolled in. I hope the structure so that you can finish those before you get sent there. Best wishes to you, sir. But I'm just one vote.
Thank you, Ms. Musk. Mr. Freeman?
You know, this is a tough case. You know, you were charged with manslaughter, you were habitual offender for the 30 years. Not, you probably would be out already if you wouldn't be a habitual offender. I'm gonna go along with Ms. Wise with the same condition.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. I'd like to thank everyone who's here, the Waltons, for their comments, as well as the family of Mr. Devine. I've listened very intently to everyone who has spoken here today, and I have to say, I agree with my colleagues. My vote likewise would be to grant conditionally upon your completing a long-term substance abuse program while in the Department of Corrections, preferably Steve Boyle, the Steve Hall program. Also, as Ms. Wise pointed out, we want you to finish the program that you're in now. And once you are released, assuming that you accomplish those things and you are released on parole, that you follow all recommendations, including whatever number of AA meetings they require. You have to do those things. So that's the vote. You've been granted a conditional parole today. Good luck to you, sir.
Thank y'all.
Thanks for watching, everyone. If you enjoyed this video, please do not forget to like and subscribe on your way out, and feel free to leave a comment. Have a blessed day.